Sister Kamala Harris with him, or he was by himself? He was by himself, okay. And are you coming back here, or you going to the hospital?
Of today and tomorrow, I still have a dream. It is a dream deeply rooted in the American dream. I have a dream.
Stop being silly. So you're going to eat and then go back to the hospital?
Live out the true meaning of its creed.
Who is?
We hold these truths to be self-evident.
Tell them you said what's up, man. All right, bro.
Lives matter.
No peace.
I have a dream.
No peace.
No racism.
Police.
On the red hills,
No peace.
Take it to the streets.
sons of
No
former
justice. No peace.
former slaves. Will they
No
be able to
justice.
sit
No
down
peace.
together at the table of brotherhood? I have a dream.
No justice. No peace.
One day. Even
Black lives matter.
sweltering with the
Black lives matter.
injustice.
Black lives matter.
Be transformed
Black
into
lives matter.
freedom and justice. I have a dream.
No peace. No peace.
My four little children.
No peace.
One day live in a nation where they will not be by the color of their skin, but by the content of their character. Today. I have a dream that one day
Justice. No peace. Because we love you.
in Alabama, with its vicious racists, with its governor,
Motion, please, fire. Could you move out of the roadway?
one day right there in Alabama, little black boys and black girls will be able to join hands with little white boys and white girls as sisters and brothers. I have a dream today. I have a dream that one day every valley
Business on police time. We want indictment, we want it now. We want that man to be convicted, to go to jail, to set precedents all over the country for people, other little people look like little Jake all over the country. That's what we want. The only way to get what we're trying to get is not to be silent, to continue to keep the heat on. Vice President Biden had a hell of a good meeting with my brother. He spoke about reform. We're not even at reform yet. We want an indictment. We want a conviction for little Jake right now, and for all the little Jakes around this country that look like little Jake and around the world. Is who? No, Jake met with them early this morning down in Milwaukee. He's getting ready to go get something and get to the hospital. Thank God he has a brother and an uncle like us. We don't want them to come out here. We've had death threats for my brother, all his children, and the family. I'm not going to put them in harm's way. I'll stand here and be the one to go down, getting the message out that we're going to die for justice. We got to have it right now. We want an indictment of this police officer who is not acting like a police officer while wearing a badge. Nobody in Kenosha was he doing work or service for. He was doing his personal criteria on police time. We want a conviction, we want an indictment, and we want a conviction now. Yeah. Right. You please explain that to us. That's the upside down of living in a world when you got somebody in the White House who's a head general of law came down there and bombed and said that our nephew was doing a felony crime and had a weapon in his hand. That's the most absurd thing we've ever heard. Little Jake had no weapon. He was shot 7 times in his back. They're trying to make something stick and plausible to why you shot a young black man with nothing in his hand 7 times in the back and paralyzed him. Stop it. We're not new. This is 2020.
When we let it ring from every village and every hamlet, from every city and every city, we will be able to speed up that day when all of us are locked in and fight
You're not going to lie.
I'm right here with Al. Church. Yeah, they already went by back there, I think. They went by, I think. Yeah, they're back there. We're just looking at everybody else around here on the service.
So even though we face the difficulties of today and tomorrow, I still have a dream. It is a dream deeply rooted in the American dream. I have a dream that one day this nation will rise up, live out the true meaning of its creed. We hold these truths to be self-evident that all men are created equal. Sit down together at the table of brotherhood. I have a dream that one day, even the state of Mississippi, a state sweltering with the heat of injustice, sweltering with the heat of oppression, be transformed into an oasis of freedom and justice. I have a dream. My four little children one day live in a nation where they will not be judged by the color of their skin, but by the content of their character. I have a dream today. I have a dream that one day, down in Alabama, with its vicious racism, with its governor having his lips dripping with the word,
And he said he's a hell of a guy. Before my brother
one
Jacob
day
could
right
get out of
there
his
in
mouth,
Alabama,
talking about
little black boys and
reform,
black girls
Vice President
will be
Biden had
able to
already
join
said
hands
it.
with little white boys and
We
white
didn't go
girls
through the
and
proper
sisters and
procedures
brothers. I have a dream today.
to be inside today, and that's okay because we're outside with the people. What y'all say, family?
I have a dream that one day every valley shall be exalted. Every hill and mountain shall be made low. The rough places will be made plain.
Please move
And the
the
crooked
roadway.
places
It is
will
the
be
total
made straight.
assembly.
And the whole
Please
world
exit the
shall be
roadway.
revealed, and all flesh shall see it
Kenosha
together.
Police Department asks that you move out of the roadway. Do not
This
obstruct
is the
traffic.
faith that I
Please
go
move out of the
back
roadway
to
for your safety.
With this faith, we will be able to hew out of the mountain of despair a stone of hope.
Others, please
With
move
this
to the
faith,
sidewalk. Please do not
we
block
will
the
be able
roadway.
to transform the
Police
janky
Department
discords of our nation into a beautiful citizen and brotherhood. With this faith, we will be able to work together, to pray together, to struggle together, to go to jail together, to stand up for freedom together. Knowing that we will be there one day. This will be the day.
From what we can extrapolate, the meeting went well with Vice President Biden. He was concerned with little Jake and where the investigation was going. He said prior to my brother mentioning, which he mentioned on CNN before we were on CNN last night, that we wanted reform. Vice President Biden was already speaking on that subject and how crucial it was to him to get reform with the police officers nationwide. And that hit tone with my brother because that's one of his pet peeves at this moment. Not just to get justice for little Jake, but to get justice all around the country for little people that look like us and look like little Jake all around the nation.
Did Luke Jake feel good about the meeting as well?
They're getting ready to grab something, eat, and go back to the hospital. He's still not himself totally. He's highly sedated due to the fact of the pain that he's going through. But they will try to explain it to him. We'll see how much he grasps.
Let freedom ring from every hill and molehill of Mississippi, from every
No, just our brother Jake, his father, and it sounds like my niece was in company and his mother, Julia.
What's up, man? Please, what's up, baby?
He will be able to speed up that day when all of God's children, black men and white men, Jews and Gentiles, Protestants and Catholics, will be able to join hands and sing in the words of the old Negro spiritual. Free at last, free at last. Thank God Almighty, we are free at last.
Right. It's about the youth, for sure. For sure.
This ain't about us.
It ain't about us. I say it every
This ain't about us all day long.
Our time is over.
Man, please don't say my name no more.
It's the youth that we have to worry
So at our two celebrations that we had with almost the 10,000 marching on last Saturday, and then the 1,500 with over 200 cameras from all over the world, who we put on the front line but the youth. So we let them speak, we let them do poetry. Some sisters traveled from California, pulling it down, trailer behind them. They were sleeping in it, and they kept tapping us, Mr. Blake, can you sing? You know what? I didn't care if they screeched up the whole for no
Of today and tomorrow, I still have a dream. It is a dream deeply rooted in the American dream. I have a dream that one day this nation will rise up, live out the true meaning of its creed. We hold these truths to be self-evident that all men are created equal. I have a dream that one day on the red hills of Georgia, sons of former slaves and the sons of former slave owners will they be able to sit down together at the table of brotherhood. I have a dream that one day even the state of Mississippi, a state sweltering with the heat of injustice, sweltering with the heat of...
Hey, Keem, how are you?
Great.
Good. What had the last 2 weeks been like for you? What are your thoughts on being ready in time for September 13th? And how do you feel?
To prepare for football, man. This time of year and this situation that we've been in, it's been taxing on everyone, right? And the biggest battle is making sure that you remember what you're focused on or what you're pushing towards, and that's coming out week one and playing good football.
Dan Wiederer.
Keem, when we talked to you in June, you had expressed some curiosity, some concern about how football and the coronavirus were going to coexist. Now that you've been in training camp for 5 or 6 weeks, why do you think that this thing has worked to this point, and how do you think you keep it on track from now until February?
We've been really cautious here and making sure that we stay in our, what we've created as our bubble and being responsible outside of our bubble, you know what I mean? Because eventually you go home at night and just making good choices. And so I think that has been one of the things that's kept us in a good place as a team is that guys are taking it seriously. Guys are masking up. Guys are making sure that they take every precaution that they can, as far as keeping themselves and the rest of the team healthy. Because that's one of your biggest thoughts, right, is that, not only if I don't take care of business will I get myself sick, but I'll hurt my other teammates, and my teammates have families and kids, and so it puts an extra onus and an extra emphasis on it for yourself to say I got to take care of myself, but I also have to take care of my teammate and his family. So it's worked for us, and I think that's what we will continue to do, and that's what we're hoping that we can maintain so we can have a good football.
Chris Emma.
Hey, Keem, how you doing?
Great. Good to see you, Chris.
Yeah, you too, man. How would you describe the difference in second year with Chuck Pagano's defense as opposed to where you guys were a year ago?
I would say this: everybody's a little bit more comfortable. We have, some things that we've been familiar with over the past year. So anytime you get that continuity from your DC, guys just feel more comfortable. So I think that going into this season, we're going to be just a little bit more sharper on some of the things that we've tried to install and do over here for the past couple of years.
Hub.
Hakeem, good to see you, man. Listen, we know coaches hate distractions, and I'm assuming players would rather not have them as well. And obviously, COVID hasn't been the only distraction. How do you feel, or how have you gone about handling those distractions as an individual? And have there been times when you've had to help out other teammates in avoiding them as well?
Distractions. Which distractions are you referring to? Just in general, distractions?
Yeah, whether it's the racial unrest or COVID or everything that's been going on outside the bubble.
Okay. As far as social justice and racial unrest, I think that is it's not something that you can really shy away from. It's something that's going to be on the forefront of your mind as long as we're dealing with it as a country. You know what I'm saying? It's going to be something that you go to sleep at night and you think about your family and if they're safe and in the different cities around the country where there's riots and people protesting and you want to make sure that everybody gets to come home safely at night, no matter who you are out there. And so those things are going to be on the forefront of your mind. It's something that we can't just put to the side. But, I think there's a balance, right, in handling your business and making sure that you're taking care of, the things that are important to you. And I think it's a different battle for everybody, right? Because the beautiful thing about football is that we're all coming from, you heard it a million times, we're all coming from different places, all different parts of the country and all different experiences. So it's, people are affected differently. But in this building and around here, we're pretty tight and pretty close. And so, we're easy to talk to for one another and lean on when we're having a stressful day. There's been times when guys have come into the building and had some tragic things or traumatic things happen in their life. And to know that you have a brother, a friend that you can speak to and unload on, there's a comfort in that. So for us in the building, we do a good job of that.
Mark Potash.
Hey, Keem, I know you haven't played in a little bit, but is your anxiety to hit somebody else any greater heading into this season than previous ones? And also with regard to the preparation and the off season, do you feel as prepared as a defense or just as a team as you have in the past heading into week one?
I missed the second part of your question because you started talking about hitting early, right? And that's something that always gets me going. It hasn't been that long. We've gotten to, get after it a bit in training camp and had some live periods and some physical periods. So, my thirst has been quenched in some ways. But when we get to the regular season and you get to unload on somebody that you don't have to see in the locker room, that's when the real pleasure comes, right? What was the second part of your question?
Do you feel like as a team as prepared for week one as you would in a more normal season?
You never know if you're prepared until you step on the field. In your mind, you're saying, I'm doing all the things right that I can in order to go out here and put on my best performance. But you're never sure until you execute. You're never sure until you finish that game with a W. You know what I mean? So I think that'll come once we get on the field versus Detroit. But as far as preparing as much as we can, we're definitely doing that.
Thank you.
JJ Stankovitz.
Hey, Keem, I wanted to ask you, did you see the statements that the Ravens and Texans put out last week and this week by any chance?
No, I missed them.
They just kind of laid out very specific demands of what actions they want to have taken. Is that something that, if you guys are able to come together on a number of actions that you would like to see the Bears put out as well?
I haven't had any, previous thought about creating a list of demands, so I couldn't say that that's something that we would be interested in doing. But one thing that is going on around here is a very open line of communication between us and our coaching staff and personnel. We've created an environment where everyone can, speak as freely as you can in any workplace, right? And I think that benefits us, and I think that we've had some really good conversations. Those type of conversations that. If you're talking to, for instance, we had a conversation in our defensive line room, right? And there's seven guys in there and our coach. And, I've been with Jay now for 4 or 5 years, but there's certain things that, conversations that you just haven't had, right? And last week, I think we really sat down and just as a group and just broke down some of our feelings about not just football, but the world as a whole, and shared our experiences. And not to say that it was like a big kumbaya moment, but there is a certain level of comfort in knowing that you have people that support you and support your beliefs and support, your life. So I can't say we have a list of demands, but I can say that we've had some open talks and looking forward to putting some things into action.
Just a few more here, guys. Dan Wiederer.
Akeem, in 10 days, when you come out of the locker room at Ford Field and walk down that tunnel, you're going to come out to a stadium full of empty seats. I'm curious what your curiosity is about playing in that environment and how guys will go about sort of manufacturing the juice that normally comes from that full arena.
I've been asked this question a few times, since this situation has been unfolding, not just by reporters, but family members and friends, and, discussing whether or not there's going to be, a fan situation at the game. And we are going to miss our people. There are some faces in that crowd that I'm used to seeing, when I suit up and I get my lather going and I'm getting ready to play. There's some faces that I'm used to seeing that I'm going to miss, right? I bring my own juice, though. So when I get fired up and get going, I'm ready to play football. I think that there's a lot of guys on this team that feel the same way. And it's competition at the end of the day. So when we step out there, it'll be nice to have our people there and those faces that I'm used to seeing. But we got to take care of business regardless. So
to get started here, obviously, we made some moves last night. So those are out there. We just wrapped up our last day here of camp with a very light 10-10-10 practice, very controlled, and being able to go through that was good for us. I thought overall, being the first time we've gone through this schedule, the guys did a really good job of adapting to the new schedule, which is certainly different and mentally can tax you, but they did really well with that, along with the coaches. So I appreciated that. Well, one other side note here too, wrapping up training camp, I wanted to let everybody here know we have we're really excited to be able to say that Coach Henry Burris who is with us as a Bill Walsh coaching internship, the minority coaching internship. We're going to keep him on staff seasonally. So he's done a really great job with us, has an amazing personality with the players, with coaches. We love his background of where he's been and his knowledge. It's a really cool story. So we're fired up about having him be on with us this season. And I think it's going to help everybody out. So with that, I'll open it up to y'all.
First question, Jeff Dickerson.
Because Foles has had so much success in his career, coming off the bench and kind of filling in when need be, does that in any way work as a negative against him when you try to figure out who's going to be your number one quarterback to start the year?
No, Jeff, it doesn't. What we try to do is start with a clean slate. Now, you take into consideration with both of these guys, just their experiences that they've had as a player in this league. That certainly has to play part of it because, again, that's when everything is certainly real. But at the same time, we do look at those type of scenarios too, and then we balance that as how much weight do we put into those different situations. So that could be a part of it as well.
JJ?
Hey, Matt, was it good to see 96 out there and get his energy back a little bit today?
Yeah, it was. Again, it was a very I don't know if you guys could tell or not, but it was a very light practice. But anytime you see 96 out there, that's a good thing. So we like that, and we know opposing offenses don't. So we want to make sure that we have him out there. So it was good.
Jason Leisure.
Matt, can you give us the clearest possible description of the criteria that you're using to choose a starting quarterback?
Well, there's a lot to keep it clear. And I told everybody yesterday that I think that both of these quarterbacks have done a good job at making it difficult. So the clearest way to say it is that for us, that we just need to be able to, again, go back and watch the tape to remind ourselves of the stuff that we thought we saw. And again, you always start with decision-making and accuracy. And then there's, in our opinion too, there's situational football involved. So those are probably the top three that we look at. And then how did they perform in training camp? How did they handle certain situations? And again, both of them we thought did well. So I know it probably is frustrating in hearing things sound somewhat gray. I completely understand that. But for us, it's not easy. So we need to go back and have more conversations amongst ourselves. Forget with Nick and Mitch. We need to have real conversations amongst ourselves. But we also know too, Jason, that time is of the essence. And the longer that things string out, the harder it is for these quarterbacks, the harder it is for our team. And I think that has carries some heavy weight as well. So we're looking at it from all angles, and we want to make sure that we make the right decision at the right time.
Colleen Kane.
Hey, Matt, when you do pick a starting quarterback, how do you plan to address it with the team? And, you've talked about everyone having their own opinions on it. Do you worry about any pushback from players either now or down the road if you don't pick who they expected or wanted?
I don't. And I know just like a lot of things in this life, we all have our own opinions and we all express it in different ways. And I understand that you're 100% not going to satisfy everybody. That's not going to happen. But that's why they go ahead and they put me in a role to make decisions. And myself, I put others in roles to help me make decisions. So it's the same thing. It's about trust. And then the conversations that go on with the players involved in the decision, and then the team when they find out. To me, the first people that need to find out are the quarterbacks, and that'll be a discussion that I have with them. And they're going to always get me shooting straight from the hip. And when we do that, or when I do that, then we'll go ahead with the next chain of command on how we do that. And I just know that the team believes in both of these guys. And so whoever it is, I'm not concerned at all about that from the team aspect.
Mark Potash.
Hey, Matt, you've said on a few occasions that even you have to wait until the opener to know exactly what you've got. And I'm just curious, after this, very different and somewhat awkward off season, what's your most honest assessment of where you are and how comfortable you feel about your team heading into week one, especially relative to year one and year two?
Sure. I think I tend to be an optimistic guy, and it's been that way the last 2 years. And for, first 2 years now, we've gone 0-1 to start the season, and it takes time to figure out. That first year, we had no idea going into what we were going to be like. So there's a lot of unknowns. Last year, there was more knowns, and we were frustrated offensively that we didn't put up more points to help the defense and to help the team win. Now that we've had 2 years together for us to all learn our personalities and to kind of know where we're at schematically in 3 phases, there's more confidence, there's more expectations, but there's got to be patience as well because it is a long season. So at the same time, I stay optimistic. We're excited. We're 10 days away. It's just we feel like it's time in a lot of different ways. We have other competitions that are going on this team. We have a lot of players that are ready to just go out there and now put all that to the side and become one. And it's here.
Pat Finley.
Matt, do you think you'll tell the team Sunday? Is that the plan right now? I know you mentioned us yesterday that you guys were going to gather together. Would you want to know who the starter is by that practice?
Well, it would be, there's a couple thoughts on that. We could, and I think that's still like when I leave this discussion right here, we're going to get up here at 12 o'clock. We have a personnel meeting that we're going to go through. It's going to start right there. And there's going to be there's always some interesting conversations in there with our coaches and our personnel staff with Ryan and his guys. We'll start there, and then we'll get together as offense and defensive staff, and we'll have our own discussions there. And then we'll break up from that and go individual. And then that's when we'll start having those discussions. And when we do, we will lean on each other to decide when is the best time. And like I said, there's one part of it to where you could say, well, there's gamesmanship and it hurts Detroit to not know who it is. There's another side where you just say, you know what, it's hurting yourself if you do that. And you need to be able to make a decision to help both of these quarterbacks, and not to mention to help us as a staff as well. So we're taking all that into consideration. We want to do it the right way. And it's out of respect to focusing more on our team than our opponent.
Do you lean more toward the figured out for yourselves than the gamesmanship side right now, or?
Yeah, I think so. I think so, Pat. To tell you the truth, I would say yes. If that's the question being asked, we'd lean more towards that and care more about that. You know, so but we'll have to wait and see.
A few more for Coach Dan Wiederer.
Matt, 2 questions for you. First of all, could you specify a little bit more about what Coach Burris will be doing for you during the season? And then as it relates to Nick, what's been the challenge for you in sort of projecting his readiness, where normally after 4 weeks of practice with a guy, it would be June, and here after 4 weeks of practice with a guy, it's week 1?
Yeah, so the first question, so with Henry, he has a lot of good ideas. He's for us, he's able to look at it from a quarterback's perspective, which is where I think will be a great fit for him to help out as well. And just like he can bounce around and be in different rooms and give us, you know, an opinion as to where he's at. We have a lot of respect for who he is and his experience in football in general. So we'll bounce him around, but we can put him on different projects and have him maybe look ahead and help us out with future teams. Maybe it's a certain self-scout study that we could use him. It just really helps him out being in the building each and every day, building relationships, which he's done a phenomenal job with. And it's a growing opportunity. I told him that's exactly how I got started. I did an internship for 2 years, and then Coach Reed called me up and gave me a lower level entry job, and that's how I got my foot in the door. So he knows what's ahead of him, and I have nothing but high expectations for him. In regards to Nick, you know, Nick and myself, we've never had a game together where I'm calling plays. So there's that unknown, right? When he was in Kansas City and Alex got hurt, he came in and Coach Reed was calling plays. There was a couple games that we played that was the case. I was always either a quality control coach or a quarterback coach with him. So actually I was the coordinator in 16 and a QB coach. So there's a little bit of that unknown. And so you have to build some trust. And I'd say with Mitch, I have 2 years of calling plays with him, and you have that, and we build our own likes and dislikes together. With Nick, you haven't necessarily gone through that, and I know that he's gone through it and built some great relationships over his career with certain coaches, and I think he uses that to help form his relationship with his next play caller, which could be me. You just got to that's what you play out.
Last one for Coach Brad Biggs.
Hey, Coach, a lot of times vets use this weekend to get away right before the start of the season. Did you have a message for your guys today? And can you sort of detail as best you can for us your schedule starting out for next week?
Sure. Yeah, so I said one word to him when we wrapped up our huddle here today at the end, and the word was selfless. That's all I said. And it wasn't to the players. I tried to make that loud and clear. We have coaches that will have off as well. Give them a little breather from everywhere where they're at so they come back fresh. But we're in our own little bubble here at Hallis Hall. We've worked extremely hard to get to this point to where we are health-wise with the COVID. And so now when you leave this bubble and you go just outside of it, it's easy to have distractions. It's easy to go to places that you normally would go to in a normal life, a normal situation, and things aren't normal now. So until they tell us they are, we need to be selfless. And it's not, towards yourself, it's towards others when you come back into this building. So, and then not to mention too, we all have tests that we got to take every morning. So the ones that think they're normally going to fly home for a couple of days and come back, that's not happening. So that was really the biggest thing. In regards to the schedule, we'll be back out for a 10-10-10 practice on Sunday. The players will have off Monday like a normal regular season, and then they'll be back in here on on Tuesday for some meetings and lifts, and then we're rocking and rolling like a normal schedule Wednesday, Thursday, Friday, Saturday.
Awesome. Thanks, Coach. Appreciate it.
All right, guys. Y'all take care.
The Rewind
The
Sports
Rewind
60.
Sports 60. From the city of big shoulders, the jewel of the Midwest, comes a sports show that's one of a kind. From iconic players to iconic stadiums to iconic teams, this is my kind of town. Chicago! And the Rewind Sports 60 is my kind of show. From Air Jordan to Sweetness to Papa Bear Hallis, this city works hard, but plays even harder. Danny Carlino and Jerry Riles bring you the Rewind Sports 60. Live. The Rewind Sports 60 starts now.
Welcome everybody to the Rewind Sports 60. We are live at 8:20 a.m. in our WCPT studios in Chicago. Please join in on the conversation for the fastest hour in sports, and which really has been one of the most pivotal sports weeks in history, essentially. Give us a call to join in on the sports conversation at 773-763-9278. And we're also streaming live on Facebook at therewindsports60.com. So I want to get right into it and bring in my esteemed panel. I want to start with Dan Marver, the marvelous one. Dan, what were your thoughts on everything that happened in sports this week?
Well,
what a crazy
in
week.
sports, I'll talk about in sports. The Cubs are 3.5 games ahead in their division, and the Sox are tied with the Indians for first place in sports.
Woohoo!
And the Bucks closed out their series, and the Lakers closed out theirs. So that's what happened in sports.
Okay.
But what happened outside of sports is probably something that the show's going to cover in great depth.
Yeah, absolutely. I think we might, and we definitely want to hear your insight on things. And then I have to bring in the amazing, the wonderful Jerry Riles. Jerry, how are you feeling on this historic sports week?
I'm excited. I'm ecstatic. I am exhilarated, and I am thrilled to see your beautiful face, your beautiful smile, and of course the marvelous one. But it's just great to get an opportunity to sit in the studios of WCPT 820 AM, and of course to rewind, reflect on the past week of sports. And as both of you alluded to, on and off the playing field was quite interesting. There's no question about it, Lauren.
Yeah, I mean, you know, the events that took place, and obviously we're talking about the NBA deciding to say, hey, we are not going to play in response to the shooting, the 7 shots that were fired at Jacob Blake in Kenosha, Wisconsin this week by police officers. You know, the players basically from the NBA, they've said that they've had enough. And I said, it's no way they're going to cancel the season. You know, too much money. $1 billion we're talking about from the playoffs alone. I knew they weren't going to cancel. Did you all, what were your thoughts when they were saying potentially that they could cancel the season and go back home? And one of the players said, I don't even know why we even came out here.
Yeah, I mean, everything's ultimately about money. I mean, it would have even been worse if they had fans in the stands who they had to give money back to.
Right.
So I thought maybe a team might drop out, but I didn't think that the whole thing would end. And it's good that they're going to finish it. And you know, I completely understand all the ramifications and what happened and whatnot. But you know, again, I'd like to see some definitive solution to this finally, but there won't be one immediately, unfortunately.
No, there's not going to be one because marvelous.
Yeah.
If there was a solution, I think it would have come across by now.
Yeah.
I think if there was a solution to this whole, confusion and, uproar and division, I think, smarter people, level heads would have sat down at the table, met, and they would have come up with a solution that would have benefited, those who are not happy.
I've talked before about legislation, which would be a minor step. I mean, the Republicans and the Democrats have both put forward justice plans, but it's an election year, so nobody's going to agree to anything, unfortunately. It's all politics. I mean, there are a lot of things like no chokeholds and having the police match the demographics of the neighborhood and things of that nature. But, I mean, the one thing that's common in these cases is, I mean, the police didn't just happen upon the situation. I don't know how a domestic abuse call ends up with this result. It doesn't make any sense, except for the obvious conclusion of I don't know what's in the police's mind and heart, but obviously it must be racism is all we can come up with.
Well, I'll tell you what's in their mind and heart.
I mean, I don't know their mind and heart personally, but if you do.
It's the mentality.
Yeah.
It's the mentality that Black African-American life is inferior, is less than. And it started from slavery. And it's very pervasive as we see today. It's a mindset. And it won't change until we continue to have these dialogues and until we stand up and say enough, which is what the players did. How much more can we take? It's just not enough to just say, hey, you know, when is this going to change? Everybody has to do their part. This is so serious. That man got shot in the back 7 times. I don't care if he had a record. I don't care what, you know, the start of it was. We all know, undeniably, if he was white, he would not be in the hospital paralyzed right now. We just saw it. They were showing reports of a man who was resisting arrest, who he went off on the police and got back in his car and made it home to his family or wherever he had to go. No reason that man should have been shot 7 times with this situation. And the issue is, this is not the only situation. Specifically after what happened with George Floyd, you would think that there would be some type of mentality shift. Obviously not. This is ridiculous.
You know, you mentioned, Lauren, and very well said, you said everyone has to do their part. What do you mean by everyone has to do their part?
For me, one issue that I'm having with this is that, and I see it at work too, I don't feel that people are understand and have the empathy enough to really let's deal with what the problem is. What I've said initially, America historically has had an issue with feeling like African American life is not as valuable, is inferior. Let's stop right there. Everybody needs to wrap their heads around that. I just feel like that's something that white people gloss over, you know, in terms of the mentality and what's really behind this. There is a serious issue, and it's pervasive with us as well as African Americans as well. Obviously so, though, because that's all we've been taught. That's all we know, all we've known since slavery. We are inferior. We are less than. And it starts from there, and it seeps down to the prison system, to the education, to the housing, to the healthcare, to the environment. That's why we have the problem that we have today. And I think more people need to just take ownership with that, let that absorb, and then work from there as in terms of equality, humanity, America. We are supposed to be equal. We are all one. We don't realize it, but we all are one. And it's no way that you can just, as a cop, see this African American, shoot him in the back like that, knowing good and well you would never have done that if he was white.
Marvelous.
Well, I mean, look at the case of Kyle Rittenhouse, for example. You're familiar with that?
A 17-year-old kid with a gun.
From Illinois, or live in Illinois.
Antioch.
So, I mean, that underscores your point, because I believe that he ended up going home that night, did he not?
He certainly did.
Yes, he did.
So that's what's underscores your point just there. So
and here's the deal regarding that is the fact that they handcuffed Jacob to his hospital bed.
Yes, they did. And he's paralyzed.
And it's like, oh, wait a minute, hang on here, hey, whoa, hang on here. Let me take a step back here. Wait a minute, hang on. Now, the one thing, we didn't see the scuffle on the passenger side of the car.
Right.
With the police officers. We see the footage. Well, actually, there was an outlet that actually showed it. And I only saw it that one time, and then they pulled it. But you see him, we've seen it universal all over, where he's walking around the front of the car, and he's trying to get in. And as the officer is grabbing his T-shirt, and he reaches down on the driver's side, you hear the gunshots. Okay, so this guy shot 7 times in the back. He lives. It's unbelievable, because I'm hearing reports, and I'm like, that this guy lived after getting shot in the back 7 times. But then you have the 17-year-old kid coming from Antioch, driving across the state line with this rifle, and they show footage, of course, Facebook Live footage, and he's with his buddy, and they're protecting some auto place, some repair shop or whatever. And then they're met by some protesters, I guess, and one guy is shot, and he dies. And then the next thing you know, you see this 17-year-old kid, Kyle, running down the street. he trips and falls, and you guys seen it all. But the point of the matter is, the National Guard that was in town to try to control everything, this kid, 17 years of age with a rifle, is waving to him and saying, "Hey, I'm here to protect the business." Not his business. Nobody. I'm here to protect this business. And they say, "Hey, good. Good. Thank you."
Carry on.
After the shooting, he gets up, and again, he's approaching him with his hands up. Let him know what happened, and okay, see you later. Go on home. Take yourself home. You'll be okay. Don't worry about it. Meanwhile, this guy
is
gets
that justified?
Meanwhile, this guy gets shot in the back 7 times, and you handcuff him to his bed in the hospital. That makes that clearly and literally makes no sense to me.
It does.
Zero. And, you talk about the controversy regarding this past week in sports, on and off the field, on and off the court, or whatever the case may be, for Brian Urlacher. After all this unfolded, transpired, Brian Urlacher, and we're certainly going to talk about that, he sends out an Instagram message or a tweet or whatever the case may be, quote, "Brett Favre played the Monday Night Football game the day his dad died, threw 4 touchdowns in the first half, and was a legend for playing in the face of adversity. NBA players boycott the playoffs because a dude reaching for a knife wanted on a felony sexual assault warrant was shot by police." This is Brian Urlacher, who just went into the Hall of Fame. All his buddies who are black,
the beloved Brian Urlacher,
attended the Hall of Fame induction. And this is
he done snap. Brian Urlacher snapped, because he didn't used to be like that.
Well, how do you know that?
Well,
how do you know that?
Well, obviously, he should know better. I'm surprised, but this isn't the first sus thing that he said. He said something else that was suspect a while back too.
There are a lot of professional athletes out there, and we hold them on a high pedestal. We hold them as iconic figures, as gods, and we want to see them in the perfect light. And
Doesn't
Brian
he have a black Urlacher, baby mama?
I'm sorry?
Doesn't he have a black baby mama?
Well, that's enough. Well, we can get into that.
While you're going
we can get into that.
Talking about that, did you see what Matt Forte responded?
Yes, I certainly did.
What did he say?
I certainly did.
The comment, B. Urlacher 54 posted, as void of empathy, compassion, wisdom, and coherence, but full of pride and ignorance. I pray for those who have been blinded by their wealth, privilege, and earthly fame. That breeds arrogance in their hearts, and those who refuse to. And it's continued. I mean,
here in the world of sports, here in the world of sports, these athletes are looked upon as iconic, godlike figures. Okay, and so when they're in their clubhouse, the locker room, or whatever the case may be, they don't. Most of them don't look at, especially in the National Football League, don't look at race, because they know their livelihood depends on
black man.
That guy. No, again, they don't look at they look at it. Hey, I need this dude to protect me.
Right.
If I'm a quarterback, I need this. If I'm a running back, I need old boy. That's why Walter Payton, may he rest in peace, he would buy his offensive line watches at the end of the season to appreciate them for the work that they've done.
Right.
A lot of these players look at it and say, hey, you know what? I'm in battle with this cat. I don't care if he's black, green, yellow, orange, purple. I don't care. This dude is, especially in the National Football League. But it does not mean
that they're not racist.
Well, there are some racists who have played professional sports, and they have played on the same field as minorities. But when they go home, in their basements, in their garages, in their penthouses, wherever they go, you can believe they're like, look at that coon running up and down there. Look at that monkey over there. I'm promising you, you've had some racists that played professionally, and they've used those terms behind closed doors. But then when they come out in public and they put on that mask that we're wearing, they put on that mask, they come across, because they understand it's economics. They understand they're not going to affect their bottom line if they have to endorse a product. They get it. But it doesn't mean that they didn't have this in their DNA, so to speak.
But to me, Jerry, it seems difficult to believe, because you think they've gone to war with African Americans. They're close with them. They, have been to their homes and have a close relationship with them versus, quite frankly, in this country, there's a lot of white people that don't even have black friends, that don't even have that close relationship where they can see African Americans up close and really understand that, we are human beings. We are one. Humanity, that aspect of it. How can you still just be blatantly racist and just come out and say some things like that after you have gone to war with, your fellow brother?
Because at the end of the day,
football field.
At the end of the day, you say, hey, you know what? You go on over there, and I'm going over here because I can, and you can't.
And that's even true in Chicago. How it's segregated. I mean, there are people that probably black folks never met white folks. And vice versa.
Yeah, this is why I say it's the greatest city in the world, and I love it. One and top of the list is the fact, it's a sports town, and I love the fact that we all come from different economic backgrounds, nationalities, whatever the case, education, but we all, especially on Sundays in the National Football League, we all get together to root for our beloved Bears, right? Sports does that. It brings everyone together. When the Bulls were winning the championships, it brought the city together as one. And that's why I love it. But the other part of it is, and I tell people all the time, especially people visiting this great city, that you could travel from one end of the city, take Western Avenue, take Ashland Avenue, travel all the way from the north to the south, and you're going to pass through a number of different neighborhoods, whether it's Polish, Italiano, Latino, black, whatever the case may be, in the city of Chicago. Mm-hmm. And it's a beautiful thing, in my opinion. It's a beautiful thing. But it's also, a detriment. I can remember growing up, in this great town, and, you go over to Comiskey Park, 35th and Shields. As a black man, you have to be kind of careful. Why? Because it was in Bridgeport. And the only pass that I would get, and my friends would get, and my brothers would get, my family, is the fact that we worked at the ballpark as vendors. So if we were working, we got a pass because we were considered a part of the group, the family. But if you weren't, if you had no reason to be around there in Bridgeport, you had some problems. And we still had problems when people knew we worked over there. So it's a great town, but it's a town. It's Chicago, and I say it loosely, the phrase, it's Chicago, the city that works. The city that works against you. You have to understand who you are and where you are. And unfortunately, that's what we're experiencing in this great land that we live in, we call the United States of America. It's unfortunate, and it's a damn shame. I got a theory on why there's so much racism going on in this city in particular regarding minorities, black men, and the police. But let's go out to the phone lines first before I get to that theory. We're going out to Rick, who's calling from DeKalb. Rick, how are you, buddy? Welcome to the Rewind Sports 60.
How you doing? Well, I don't really want to see the Black Lives Matter situation enter into sports. I wish it could be done some other way, but I do absolutely admire and adore our sports heroes. So I understand they have the right to do what they want to do. But what made me call in was there's a meme on WCPT that shows police officers shooting a man walking away in the back, and then it shows that white teenager walking by them unseen, so to speak. And I just thought, this is the problem we have right now in America, is that we can't discuss things in ways that is a discussion. I mean, if we're going to go look at Kyle Rittenhouse, who should not have been there, who should not have been a 17-year-old with any gun, let alone an AR-15, and we compare him to Jacob Blake, I mean, I just don't think that's fair. I don't think there's any reason to do that other than to incite, I guess, lines being drawn, because I just don't see the reason for that. I mean, Breonna Taylor, I mean, I think everybody's heart should break for people who are killed and murdered by police officers. There's no way that I, as a person who is not black, should not feel compassion for anybody whose life is ended for disgusting reasons. But to compare Jacob Blake and Kyle Rittenhouse as some kind of bad and good is completely, I think, off base.
Well,
it doesn't do anything to bring our country together as it should.
Well, here's the deal, Rick, and I appreciate you sharing your thoughts, and I'm going to keep you on the line here. I don't think we're necessarily, at least let me speak for myself. I'm not comparing the two gentlemen. I'm comparing the situations that unfolded and the consequences regarding that. And if you and others can't see that there are total differences regarding the situation when it relates to law enforcement in this country, in Chicago, and in Kenosha, to me, there's a little bit more education that needs to go on here, because as you well know, I don't know how old a man you are and you're from DeKalb, but you can believe in your logical mind, I don't know your level of education, but it does not, and take the color out of it, but it simply does not make sense for an unarmed man who is leaving an area, gets stopped by a group of people, i.e. the law enforcement, who are supposed to serve and protect, to shoot this person 7 times in the back who's no threat. But then you look at this other situation, and you have a guy with a rifle. You say an AR-7?
AR-15.
Yeah. You have a guy with a rifle walking up and down the street. He addresses the military who are protecting the streets and say, hey, I'm okay. I'm here to help you. He shoots 3 people. 2 of them die. He's allowed to get up, get in this car, drive across a state line, go home, and is not arrested until the next day. Take the color out of it. You've got to say to yourself, hey, wait a minute. Something seems kind of off here. Something doesn't seem right. So we're not comparing the two.
I could not agree more. I couldn't agree more.
And that's what we're discussing here.
If you're looking at serving, protecting people, were not the police serving, protecting the sexual assault victim from Jacob, who they had a warrant out for his arrest?
Wait a minute. No. Hang on here. Did they report that he was assaulting this person at the time that they shot him 7 times?
No, of course not.
Of course not. That's the point. That's the point. Lauren said it. Lauren Cox said, I don't care what his record was. We're not talking about that. We're talking about the circumstances that we are aware of at the time that it occurred. We didn't know if we found out that information after the fact. We found that out. Listen. That's irrelevant. That's irrelevant. The point.
That's absolutely relevant.
No.
That's why they tried to arrest him.
Listen, I didn't know he had charges against him or whatever the case may be. I didn't know that. This Kyle what's his name? Rottenberg? Rottenberg? What's his name? I didn't know that he's allegedly connected to some white supremacist group. Mm-hmm. I know that. The scenario that I laid out to you, Rick, from DeKalb, right, is that these are 2 instances, 2 circumstances that occurred. One guy who's unarmed, who's leaving the scene, gets apprehended by the cops, and he's shot 7 times in the back, unarmed. This other guy has an arm, and he's walking up and down the streets telling law enforcement, I'm here to help you. He shoots 3 people, 2 of them die, and he's allowed to leave and drive home and get into bed and go to sleep. There's something wrong with Rick. Those 2 scenarios. I'm not factoring any of the other things that we learned after the fact. I'm giving you 2 situations that an average, in my opinion, person with a halfway decent education will look at it and say, hey, wait a minute, this doesn't make any sense to me. This does not make any sense to me. If you have a good ripe apple and a rotten apple, which apple are you going to eat? The nice ripe one, or are you going to eat the rotten one? A person with common sense is going to say, hey, you know what? I don't want that one. I want this one. Rick, I love you. Thank you. And that's what I'm here for. That's what I'm here for. I got to run, Rick. This is the fastest hour in sports conversation. We want you to continue to listen and be a part of what we're doing here, buddy.
Jacob Blake is not the healthy apple.
Thank you, brother. I got to tell you, listen, folks, we're going commercial free here. It's the fastest hour in sports conversation. It is the Rewind Sports 60. Yours truly, Jerry Riles. The marvelous one, Dan Marver. The lovely, the talented, the outstanding. She is sensational, and she's going to bring the heat. She's Lauren Cox. And on our TR60 hotline, ladies and gentlemen, you love this guy. He's an iconic figure in the National Football League and, of course, in Chicago. He goes by the Coach. He brought us our own Super Bowl some 34, 35 years ago. He's on the TR60 hotline. He's Mike Ditka. Coach, how are you?
I'm doing good, guys, but I don't have much power left on my phone, so.
Well, don't worry about it. Don't worry about it. We'll pay the bills when we have to pay it for you, Coach. But we appreciate you taking some time on this Sunday to come on board and join us. And I tell you, this world of sports that we know, Coach, has been turned upside down, inside and out, and who knows which way it's going to land. But we wanted to get you on our phone lines to talk with you, first and foremost, to see how you're doing, and secondly, get your viewpoint on what's transpired in the world of sports in 2020.
Well, sports is good. I mean, the athletes are bigger, they're better, they're faster. I mean, you look at everything that's going on. These guys are playing the game of football today, playing at a much higher level than we played, even though we had a lot of great players in our time. But it's completely different. It's the man's game.
Hi, Coach. This is Lauren Cox here. I wanted to get your insight on, I'm sure you probably heard about Brian Urlacher's, he's under fire for posting a meme criticizing the NBA players for protesting. When you saw or when you heard, and I'm not sure if you have, Urlacher's comments criticizing the NBA players for protesting, what were your thoughts on that?
I don't pay attention to that stuff. But Brian has the right to say what he wants to. If that's what he believes, and that's what he believes. I don't hold that against him. I just think that, guys who are playing in special sports got a heck of a deal. They're making a heck of a lot of money. I would just enjoy it.
Another question for you. We just had a caller who called in, Rick, and he talked about the NBA protesting, and he said that he wished that they could protest in another way. And I wanted to ask him, and I didn't get a chance to, but I'll pose it to you. What way would be comfortable, or what do you think, if you have any thoughts on ways that you think that the players should protest?
So what do they protest?
Injustice, an African-American man getting shot 7 times in the back, and a gazillion others that get shot all the time unjustifiably by the police.
Do you think it's unjustified? I don't know, guys. I mean, you're talking about something now that you're pulling this out of the air. You don't know the circumstances. I don't know the circumstances. I don't agree with shooting anybody. But I don't know. I don't know how you would say it is right or wrong or otherwise. The police have a job to uphold law and order. That's their job. Now, do they make mistakes? Yes, they do. But I think if you look at the percentages, they do a pretty good job.
Coach, here's what the whole issue is. All right. Here's why the protestings are going on. Here's why players are boycotting. Here's why, not only in the National Football League, Major League Baseball, the NBA, and of course, the National Hockey League, soccer, the whole 9 yards. It's the fact that there are things that are occurring. Now, there are 75% of African American or minorities playing in the National Football League. 75% of the players in the NBA are African American or minority men. So they are the ones who are getting very well paid as far as what they're doing because of their talents and their skill set. But the other 99% of us, we got to earn a living, and we got to find a way to do that. So when the circumstances are not presented to you on a plain, even level playing field, and in some cases they end in death, the 1% that has made it out, the less than 1%, are saying, hey, you know what? We got to do something here, because for the grace of God, there go I. And that's the problem, Coach. These players who are making the money that they're making and on the stage and the platform that they're on are saying, hey, you know what? We have to represent the people who have not made it, who are still struggling. And this is a way for us to get our point across, get our message across. And for anyone who does not see that or understand that, it lends to bring about some pain. And that's the problem that these players have, and the community as a whole have, with management, people in authority, and people who make decisions aren't meeting at the table to try to come up with a solution.
Well, you're probably right. You know, there's some things you said there are probably right. I mean, I think they should work hard enough to. You know, pro sports is a tremendous thing. It pays a lot of people a lot of money. It's good for a lot of people. Enjoy it. You have a God-given talent. Not everybody has the talent to dribble a basketball, shoot a basketball, catch a football, or hit a baseball. You got a talent. Thank God for it. Enjoy it. And do it in peace.
No, so Coach, here's the deal. And I love you on with the great Coach Mike Dicker of your Super Bowl winning Chicago Bears, the 85 Bears, Super Bowl 20. Coach, here's the deal. You are an advocate. You are out front for the retired players who can't take care of themselves because of the game of football. You are very outspoken, and those players who can't speak for themselves, who either literally can't talk, their mental CTE, the mental capacity has diminished considerably, their bodies are broken down, and you're out front saying, listen, we need to take care of these guys because this sport has given us the livelihood that we have today. But unfortunately, there are players in the past, in your era, before your era, and after your era, who financially aren't prepared. They can't take it. Physically, they're breaking down. And you want to make sure that things are done right and properly for those guys because they paved the way. And that's what these athletes in this protest and these boycotts are doing. They said, listen, it's beyond us now. This is our community. What do you say to that? Because you're doing the same thing.
I'm not saying they're right or wrong. Listen to me. I don't know what they are, right or wrong. I know that they have a right to dignity. Everybody has a right to dignity. And if they don't think they're getting dignity, then you got to let the protest. But you make a lot of money, guys. You're making a lot of money. You can't make that kind of money doing anything else. You cannot make the kind of money you make in sports doing anything else.
No. Yeah, I agree.
Then I said it. That's it.
Okay.
So, be grateful. Enjoy the opportunity. You got. Thank God. Every day when you wake up, thank God. Hey, man, I got great talent. I'm using them. I'm making a lot of money. I can take care of my family. Enjoy it.
Hey, Coach, this is Dan in the studio. Before your battery goes dead, I wanted to ask you quickly about the kneeling. I assume you feel the same way, that they have a right to.
I don't think it's right. I think it's a privilege to live in this country. I think our flag is a symbol of freedom and opportunity and all the good things. And I think well, I don't know why. The kneeling thing I don't understand, so I really shouldn't comment on it.
No, I understand, Coach, and that's the problem here, because we all, you live in this country, you've grown up, learning the national anthem and our pledge of allegiance to the flag and all of that stuff. But Coach, here's the difference here. Here's the big difference, and this is why we wanted to have you on to get your thoughts and get your perspective on what's affecting not only this great city that we live in, but this country that we live in and the world that we live in, Coach. And those players that you talked about, you had some fantastic players on that Super Bowl team, whether it's Walter Payton, Willie Gault, Mike Singletary, Otis Wilson. But listen, Coach, here's what we want you to understand and want others to understand, that as an African American man living in this country, playing in the greatest game in the world, in my opinion, playing professional sports and all the money that you make, at the end of the day, you still walk out of your door every single day as a black man, and you have to wonder what kind of racism I'm going to experience today because of the color of my skin. And that's the problem, Coach. The great Walter Payton.
Okay.
Coach.
I hear you.
Coach. So here's
That's the problem.
So how do we do it? Because, Coach, you don't help. You didn't help the situation, Coach. And I love you to come on with us. But you didn't help the situation when you said, if you don't like this country, get the hell out of it. You didn't help. Oh, he hung up?
Oh, did we lose him?
Devin, call him back. Call him back.
Battery died.
No, he did say his phone was going to die. But we got to talk the coach off the ledge and let him understand. It's bigger than playing again, the greatest sport in the world, in my opinion. That's the National Football League. I love it. But if you're a professional athlete making all this money, it doesn't make the grass green on the other side for everybody else.
And that's what Jared Kushner came out and said, too. And I think it's interesting that people want to say how much money they make. That didn't stop, was it Michael Bennett when he was in Las Vegas and the police basically, who knows what they would have done to him if they hadn't found out.
Yeah.
Also, the Milwaukee Bucks player, Sterling, same thing. They don't care about the money that you make. That's the point that I was talking about earlier. It's the mindset. They don't know every single player if he's not LeBron or, someone recognizable like that. At the end of the day, all they see is inferiority.
That's
a
it.
black man.
And
that's the problem.
Right. And that's the message that we have to convey not only to the coach, but anyone out there listening to the program is that, and these players say, hey, man, listen, at the end of the day, I'm a black man. And I have to, every single day, when I wake up and open my eyes and then I go outside, I have to wonder, in a 24-hour period of time, or however long I'm out there, but when am I going to experience some sort of racism just for the color of my skin? And that's a heavy, heavy burden to carry all of your life.
And they've experienced it.
Here's the deal. I went to a concert a few years ago over at the Rosemont Theater, my buddy and I, Chris Rock. And he was talking, this is when Hillary was running all that good stuff, blah, 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 blah. He was funny as hell. It was hilarious. But Chris Rock said, hey, he said, turn up the lights. Turn up the lights. He turned up the lights. Yeah, he clearly hung up on us. I've been calling. It's ringing. He turned up the lights. He turned up the lights. He said, is there any, he goes, y'all know how rich I am. He goes, where I live, there are only like 3 of us. Me, Mary J. Blige, and somebody else. Denzel. I think Denzel had a place. He said, it's just the 3 of us. He said, his neighbor is a dentist. He said, my next door neighbor's a dentist. He goes, y'all know how rich I am. He goes,
those dentists, they make money.
He's like, who the hell is he? But in any case, he said, is there any white person in the audience that would trade places with me? Now, he had them to turn up the house lights. He said, is there anybody in here that would trade places with me? The white people got so uncomfortable. They were looking around. They were, because you got to face it. All the tragedies and injustices and everything that these guys are standing up for and kneeling for, whatever the case may be, there's no person in the world would substitute their life to take on that life. There's not. And he said, for 24 hours, would you trade places with me, knowing how rich I am, for 24 hours?
I wouldn't even trade places with you, Jerry. No,
that was a fat nerves, buddy.
Hey, listen. In spite of everything else, I mean, the one thing that is bad that I'm upset about is the looting and the rioting. I mean, that's bad too, don't you admit? I mean, that's.
But do you understand the message behind the looting and the rioting? Because think about this.
And we don't even know what's all going on with all this looting and rioting.
This is another thing I want to say to you. Listen, and when I say you, not just you, Marvelous, but here's the deal. And the one thing I didn't mention the coach, and he hung up on us. He hung us on, and we tried to reach him back, but he didn't. So that's fine. The fact that he came on, that's all good. But the coach also said, before all this happened, that black people have not been oppressed in this country for over 100 years. He said that there's no oppression for black people in 100 years.
Since slavery ended.
Since what they're complaining about.
Okay.
But here's the deal: when everybody's talking about, oh, look at the looting, look at the rioting. Joe Biden said, "Hey, listen. When you see the Charleston, was it Charleston where the white supremacists came out with the pitchforks and the torches and everything, right? When you see the looting and the rioting going on, Magnificent Mile or whatever the case may be, I don't condone it, not one bit. But if you go back to the 60s, the 50s, the 40s, and we're not even talking about Black Wall Street, white America has been rioting and looting in the black community since slavery, even before slavery. You've had white people marching with pitchforks, torches in black communities, burning them down, raping their women, lynching the kids.
Ku Klux Klan, basically, right?
They were the leaders.
Yeah, okay.
But there were people that look, they're white, who if you saw them Monday through Friday, you wouldn't suspect that they were a part of the white supremacist group. My point being is, all this looting and rioting that you're seeing today, right now, it's been happening in this country to black America for years. But it was accepted and it was encouraged. They used to have lynchings on a Saturday afternoon or a Sunday afternoon where white America would go to the park because Tyrone Hill, and I don't mean Tyrone Hill, the former basketball player, but Tyrone Doe is going to get lynched at 12 o'clock noon on Sunday. Exactly. Put on your Sunday best. Let's go. Get your picnic basket. We're going to see ourselves a lynching. So when you talk about the rioting and the looting that's taking place today because a group of people are fed up with being fed up and being treated unfairly, you got to look at yourselves and say, hey, wait a minute. And you go, hey, I didn't do that. Well, your grandmother did it. Your grandfather did it. Your great-grandmother did it. Your great-grandfather did it. And that trickles down to what we experience and what we see in today's society.
And we must not juxtapose the people and what they did at Michigan Avenue with the Black Lives Matter movement in terms of peaceful protesting. It's peaceful protest that's going on every day, all day long.
Well, let me say this to you.
Let
me say this to you. And
okay, that's totally different than people trying to steal stuff and using an excuse. Those are two separate issues, and people need to understand and have so much vitriol and passion about slavery as they did about the rioting.
When you protest anything, protest doesn't call for peace. Protest does not. There's no peaceful way. Oh, you can walk up and down the street with your little sign and everything. Right. But when you're talking about protesting, you are opposed to something that is not right. And you've been trying to tell people, that's why you've gotten to the level of protesting, because it's the information that you're supplying those in power has fallen on deaf ears. And so when you talk about protests, that means you're going to do whatever it takes to get your message across to the people who can make a decision. So peaceful protesting, people peaceful protest all the time. They peaceful protest all the time. They see it doesn't get them anywhere. And so they say, we've got to take protest to the level where it's meant to be.
Yeah.
to wake some people up and to get them to do something.
Because after those Milwaukee Bucks players, after they decided not to play, it was a lot of attention brought to the situation, obviously, and people say, well, I wish they didn't protest in that way, which I asked Coach Dicker which way would be comfortable for you for them to protest. But they were able to get on the phone. They had their owner get on the phone with some of the legislators and talk about some legislative changes that were like in the books that hadn't came to fruition yet. So that situation was enough where they had the eyes and the voice, the ear of the people in power to say, okay, what do we need to do? And, it just baffles me that people are saying, well, I wish they wouldn't do it in that way. We've been trying to do it in every other way for hundreds of years, and we have the same problem today as we've had 100 years ago.
Right. It's marvelous.
Well, as I was saying before, there was an attempt in the legislative branch, which wouldn't be the end-all and be-all, where the two sides can't get together. Actually, Tim Scott of South Carolina, the African-American gentleman, put through a bill, and the Republicans in the House put through a bill, and you'd think they could talk to each other, like Cory Booker even, and Tim Scott could get together. It would be beautiful. I mean, that would be a start, but it doesn't happen. That upsets me, too.
Well, I mean, that's the other thing. It's politics, and these are professional politicians, right. And they negotiate to get their upper hand, and that's where we are regarding that. Our number here is 773-763-9278. Is that it? 9878? What's the number? I'm just
who knows?
9278.
9278. It's the Rewind Sports 60. Yours truly, Jerry Riles, the beautiful, talented, lovely, and outstanding Lauren Cox, and the marvelous one, Dan Marver. I wanted to share with you guys and girls who are listening in, my theory on why we have the division that we have in this great city of ours, related to the CPD, Chicago Police Department, and of course the black and brown communities, in particular the Inglewood area and the Austin area. And this is my theory. I went to St. Rita High School over there when it was on 63rd and Claremont, and I was one of 6 blacks to graduate from there. Okay, they're probably, I'm stretching it, they're probably like 30, 35 of us overall.
How many people were in your graduating class?
890 something or whatever. Okay? So, but my point being is, if you're familiar with the Catholic League, you're familiar with, there weren't many blacks during this time that were there, okay? So I went to school with a lot of these white cats. Irish, Italian, Catholic. I went to school with them. So I was accepted because I'm Jerry Riles, first of all, but but the point is, I was able to learn the culture, okay, of my white brethren on the South Side, and they were able to learn a little bit about me. But I was always, well, you're not like them, or you're different, or you're not one of them. Meaning I wasn't, black because I was cool. I was, I was accepted, right, even though I was still black. You take those guys, and we're talking about 15, 16, 17, 18-year-old kids, and their mentality. I learned a lot of things going to that school that I was blown away. I was like, wow, people live like this, and people do this stuff, and all this. My point being is, you take the Catholic League, you take the public leaguers, because the public leaguers used to come over and, beat up the Catholic leaguers because they thought, we wore ties and all that stuff. But you take the Catholic leaguers, you take the public leaguers, and they grow up, and then you take the suburbanites who have no clue about city people, and they become people in power and position. So that mentality carries over from their high school days of being a Catholic leaguer, and Catholic leaguers stick together. And public leaguers, I guess, stick together. I'm not a public leaguer, but they stick together. And so when they get into power, a position of power, that mentality carries over.
Continues, yeah.
It carries over. So a lot of Catholic leaguers get jobs in the city because, you went to Mendel, you went to Leo, you went to Quigley, you went to Rita, you went to Lawrence, even though we have our own in-house fighting. But then you got someone from CVS, a Simeon, a Hubbard, or Curie, whatever the case may be. You're right. You got to hate. Well, Kenwood. You're like, wait a minute. You're a public leaguer. Get your ass on over there. And now you got suburbanites coming in from Niles West and New Trier and Naperville, and you're like, hey, you're not one of us. You're not a part of us. And so that's where dissension comes in. And when you have that mentality and it trickles down over to the police force, you're a white Irish Catholic police officer. And I'm not saying it's for all of them, but I'm just saying the mentality. And you look at some black guy from Austin neighborhood or the Inglewood neighborhood who is a dropout from public league, you're like, this guy's a bum, he's a loser, he's a no good, he's out here destroying the neighborhood. Let's kick his ass. That's my theory. That's my opinion. That's what I believe. I see what's going on here.
Well, that too, but you can't forget the president. I mean, he's stuck.
Well, I'm just talking about this city.
Well,
and the president is a whole different story. He's a whole different story.
In the cities all across the country. I mean, this stuff is rearing its ugly
But
head.
that's the mentality, Lauren. That's the mentality.
But people weren't as brazen to act on it now.
They've always been.
They've always
Well,
it's more.
No,
It's
no,
more. It's more. It's okay.
No, I'm telling you. I walked the halls there and I saw the white boys. Well, I'm telling you.
Yeah, I believe you for sure.
They've all been around. He's just saying, y'all stupid enough to put me in this office or to give me the most power in this country. Hey, I'm going to use it. I'm going to flex my muscle.
Mm-hmm.
And that's the mentality. That's the mentality. But this is something that's been going on prior to this guy getting in office. Way before that. It's just the mentality and the culture. Marvelous?
Well, I was opining over what you said. It's interesting that I started out at the public schools in Chicago, and then eventually ended up in the suburbs, and there was racism in the suburban schools.
Sure.
even though I was my school actually had very few African Americans, but it was more of a economic, or so, as I can sort of.
But here's the deal:
remember.
it's even when you close the gap, and that's what we're seeing with these professional sports. When you close the gap as far as economics are concerned, and Lauren said it. Hey, listen, you got players who are multimillionaires, but they're driving down the street in their cars. The police will pull them over, not knowing who they are, so they're wondering, how'd you get that flashy car?
Oh, sure.
And then they go, oh, you're LeBron James, and I'm just throwing a name out there.
Mm-hmm.
So even when you close the gap because you're educated and taught, the only way to succeed and survive is through education. But you now enter to a different realm, a different sphere, where you're still, I have the money. The great Walter Payton, I was going to say this before Coach hung up. The great Walter Payton was invited to a dinner. He's invited to a dinner. He left practice, whatever, late. As he walked through the doors of this dinner, they were having cocktails, correct? He overheard somebody say, hey, what's that N doing here? The guy that invited him to this cocktail party, he said, oh, that's Walter Payton. The guy that called him the N, what's that N doing here? His whole demeanor changed because he found, oh, that's Walter Payton. He goes over to Walter to greet him and shake his hand. And Walter looked at him in disgust, turned around, and walked out.
Right.
So you think that education and that economic gap is going to close and put you on the same level, but at the end of the day, you don't want to put on this brown suit because it's not going to benefit you.
It's what Doc Rivers, Clippers coach, said when he spoke about the police shooting up Jacob Blake. He said, it's amazing to me why we keep loving this country and this country does not love us back. That's it.
Yeah.
What stands out to me is just watching the Republican convention and this spewing this fear, right? Like, all you hear is Donald Trump and all of them talking about fear. We're the ones getting killed. We're the ones getting shot. We're the ones that we're denied to live in certain communities. We've been hung. We've been shot. And all you do is keep hearing about fear. It's amazing why we keep loving this country, and this country does not love us back.
There you go, Lauren.
There it is. How can you not feel that? How can you not feel that? I don't know. I don't know how you don't get it. Or try to get it.
It baffles me, Lauren. It really does baffle me because at the end of the day, my good friend Howard Brookins, he's the alderman on the 21st Ward. His family, they own the funeral home, Brookins Funeral Homes. At the end of the day, we all got to meet our maker. We all bleed, and we're all going to be 6 feet under or cremated or whatever case may be, but we're all in this together.
Rest in peace, Black Panther.
Yeah, definitely. They're actually going to show Black Panther tonight on ABC, a special showing.
It was on last night, too.
Yeah, okay.
Yeah. Chadwick Boseman, God bless you. May you rest in power. Closing thoughts, Marvelous?
Okay, well, again, I hope everybody can still enjoy sports despite everything. That's what we're here for. Rewind Sports.
Absolutely. R.I.P. Black Panther as well as Cliff Robinson as well.
God bless you. I was surprised and saddened by both the losses. Ladies and gentlemen, it's been another edition of the Rewind Sports 60. Have a great rest of your Sunday. Enjoy the week. Check us out on Comcast on Wednesday at 7 p.m., Channel 17, Channel 19, Channel 35 in the northern suburbs. And you can always check us out on Facebook, YouTube, and the RewindSports60.com. Thanks to Devin Tingle, our producer, and, of course, Mike Dicka, who hung up on us.
Because battery died.
It's the fastest hour in sports conversation. Take care, everybody. Good night. To be joined by the Honorable Madam Mayor Lori Lightfoot on our TR60 hotline right here at WCPT 820 AM, the Rewind Sports 60. Mayor Lightfoot, how are you?
Well, I was listening with great interest to your conversation about The Last Dance.
Well, you know what? First of all, thank you so very much for taking some time out on this, I have to say, a busy Sunday, because it seems as if you're always busy regarding this pandemic. We appreciate you taking time out to join us on the fastest hour in sports conversation here in the great city of Chicago, the Rewind Sports 60. But yeah, we're looking forward to this Last Dance, Mayor. I'm sure you had an opportunity to take some time last week to check it out. I don't know if you watched it live for the 2 hours. But what are your thoughts from what you've been able to see?
Well, it was painful to watch, right? Because the notion that you would take an iconic, maybe once-in-a-generation player and break up a team with that level of talent, and you got that kind of a player after spending time building and putting the elements around him, it didn't make any sense to me then. And it doesn't make any sense to me with the benefit of hindsight. It was just ego over good business sense, ego over good sports management. It didn't make any sense.
No, it certainly didn't make any sense. And one reason it didn't make any sense to me, and I'm sure millions of people, not only Chicagoans, but around the country and around the world, is the fact that by this time, I mean, these guys have won, 5 championships, right? So by this time, you clearly, even if you're a novice sports fan, a novice basketball fan, you clearly knew, unless you had your head, buried in the sand or something, you knew that Michael Jordan was definitely the best there ever was at this particular time. And as Michael said, you ride this thing until the wheels fall off. He said, we worked our tails off to get to this point. We'd earned this. Give us an opportunity to lose it. And you're right. It was painful, and it was disappointing that Jerry Krause couldn't put his ego aside to reload and continue to come back. Do you think that team, had it stayed intact, it stayed in place, could have possibly run off, another 2 championships?
I mean, you don't know, right? Weird things happen in sports, injuries happen, but why take the chance and not allow that great chemistry? They were the ultimate team. Why not allow that team to finish its run and not artificially pull the plug? Look, I lived in Chicago when Michael came, and the teams around him were very mediocre, and then they couldn't get past the bad boys in Detroit. I actually lived in Detroit for a year, that last year that Detroit had its run, and that was painful to watch. But then when you see this ascendancy, why would you stop that? It doesn't make any sense whatsoever.
None whatsoever. And so we got to ask the $1 million question, because since that time, we've had some blips on the radar, so to speak, as far as some draft picks are concerned. We got Jay Williams out of Duke, and he had an unfortunate, tragic accident. Thank goodness. It was life-threatening. Right. But he was projected to turn that thing around. And hence, it was Jerry Krause, because you remember when Michael Jordan left, his locker at the United Center, it was vacant. No one wanted to even touch that locker.
Right.
Jerry Krause told Jay Williams, hey, that's your locker over there. And everyone's, hey, wait, that's the king. That's Michael Jordan's. And Jerry's like, he's no longer here. Hey, that's yours. And we see what happened with Jay Williams. Then, of course, we fast forward, we get our own Chicago product in Derrick Rose. And we think that he's the savior.
Yes.
And a blessing. And then what happens? He has the torn ACL. Do you think, because of what Jerry Krause did, because a lot of people speculate, that this team has a curse on it because of that move, breaking up the dynasty team?
Well, I don't think it has a curse, but I think that made a lot of questionable decisions. I mean, look, if you look back through NBA history, right, it's a very unusual thing to be able to build a team around a point guard or a shooting guard.
Mm-hmm.
It's usually a center, power forward, and then the rest of the pieces. Michael was obviously unique, as you know, he wasn't really a point guard, but a small forward, I would say. Magic obviously was just, you know, again, one of those once in a generation kind of players. But the great teams were not built around 6'1", 6'2", 1 or 2 guards. And so what you're talking about is, you know, the drafting of Jay Williams. We'll never know what came of that because he had an unfortunate motorcycle accident. I mean, Derrick Rose is obviously an incredible talent, but even there, they didn't get better until the other pieces were around him. He couldn't consistently take over a game by himself and score 30, 40 points. And really, you don't want that. You want to be able to get other people involved, get everybody touches, have, you know, everybody down to the 6th, 7th man contributing to the flow, because otherwise you're going to burn out with a long NBA season. I just think that they haven't had the luck of the right draft picks at the right time to really build the team. And I think the thing that is really the problem, it's not a curse, is, you know, you hear gossip from, you know, NBA players that they don't believe in the organization and therefore we're very reluctant to come. Now, we're turning the page with a new general manager.
Mm-hmm.
I'm anxious to see him build out his team. I like the Reinsdorf personally very much, and I hope that this is really the start of a new beginning. But, you know, the proof is in the pudding. They're going to have to put the team on the floor, bring back the crowds, and demonstrate once again that Chicago is a force to be reckoned with, and that remains to be seen.
It certainly does. We're on with the great mayor of our city of Chicago, the great city, Chicago, Mayor Lori Lightfoot, joining us on the Rewind Sports 60 WCPT 820 AM.
Mayor Lightfoot, this is Lauren Cox here. I have so many sports questions that I wanted to ask you, and I saw that tweet that you tweeted last week. You had a super cool Bulls hat on, and I think you said, "Don't at me for 54 minutes, hashtag Last Dance." So that was so funny. I'm like, I've got to hear what her first impressions were. But again, we know that you are a huge sports fan, and you've been in Chicago for many, many years, a Chicago Bears season ticket holder for 20 years, Chicago White Sox ticket holder, and WNBA Chicago Sky season ticket holder as well. So I have to ask you, what are your thoughts on the moves that the Bears made during the offseason and the draft as well?
Well, I think that they definitely upgraded at linebacker, and I'm forgetting the guy's name, but the guy that they got from Dallas, that seems like a significant upgrade. You know, Nick Foles is very interesting, right? I mean, he's had such iconic moments, but then he's not been consistent. Mm-hmm. So I think bringing in some competition for Trubisky is the right thing. Is Nick Foles the answer? You know, we're going to see once they get out on the field and start putting it together on the offense. But the inconsistency of Trubisky over these last few years, it's just, even in the year that we had a great run, what you saw, I think, last year was the inconsistent offense wasn't producing. I thought the play calling was very pedestrian. And then you saw the defense every game getting gassed because they were out on the field too long. That's still a really solid defense. A lot of really great players. Now, I think they've got to pick it up, and I'm interested to see some of the draft picks on the defensive end. But I felt like way too often we just got outcoached. And for me, again, it really starts with the offense. And, you know, let's mix it up. Let's not be predictable and try to run up the gut against teams where they've got that lockdown. But really, we need much more consistent play at the quarterback.
You know what? You make a very valid point. A lot of people were beside themselves. We talked about it all season long right here on the Rewind Sports 60 that Matt Nagy and his play calling was very, very suspect. But do you think it was partly due with the fact that Mitchell Trubisky isn't his quarterback? That's Ryan Pace's quarterback draft, and we know the history behind that. And it seemed as if Matt Nagy was put into a position to try to bring the best out of this kid as much as he possibly could, despite the fact that he wasn't designed to run Matt Nagy's offense. Did you feel or sense any of that watching this debacle that we just witnessed this past season?
Well, I mean, go back a season prior, right? Mitch Trubisky's never going to be a Hall of Fame quarterback. I just don't see that in him. But does he have the ability to stay within the offense and manage a game so that the defense then can bear down? And, yeah, I think he's got that capability. But the consistency wasn't there. And for me, it really started with the preseason. I don't think this guy, who had very few game reps in college, why do you not give him game reps in the preseason? Now, I understand there's a concern always about getting somebody hurt in preseason, but he's a guy that's got to get reps. And I hope they won't make that same mistake this year.
You and me both, Mayor Lightfoot. I have to ask you, I heard that during election night, you didn't want to hear any preliminary poll results. You wanted to wait until the final count. And you had the Duke versus Virginia Tech game on instead of listening to what was going on beforehand. So walk me through that. What was going through your mind that night? And is it true? Did you really have the Duke versus Virginia Tech game on while you're sitting here seeing if you could be and do the impossible and be the next mayor of Chicago?
Yeah, I mean, I had a crowd in my room when we were waiting for the results to come in, and over time they just kind of filtered out. And we had the game on, and I just stayed watching. I didn't know what the outcome was going to be. I mean, we at that point were running the campaign on a shoestring. We knew it was going to be tight. We were hoping for a 1 or 2 finish, but really didn't know what the result was going to be. And I'm sitting there watching the game by myself, and all of a sudden I hear this scream. I thought, well, what could that be? And I'm hoping, obviously, that it could be a good thing.
Right.
I hear a scream, people running, and of course that was distracting, but nobody came in. And I found out later it was the first time that one of the stations had shown the preliminary results, and it showed me in first place. And people just went wild, of course. And then, eventually when I kept hearing more and more and more, I said, all right, I got to find out what's going on. And stuck my head out of the room, like, what's up?
Right.
And then I started finding out that we were getting very good news. But, yes, I did watch the Duke Virginia Commonwealth game, and I started watching a second game that night, which I think was a Big Ten game, which I can't remember now which one it was, but sports is always a nice distraction for me.
You know what? It's interesting you mentioned the Big Ten, and I love you. I think you're doing a heck of a job. There's no question about it. I'm sure not you and none of us anticipated what we're going through right now with this pandemic. Yeah. I mean, we knew that there are issues here in Chicago, and we knew that we needed a new voice and a change of pace, and that you were going to bring that. But none of us anticipated what we're actually going through and experiencing. And I give credit, I'm sure Lauren and everyone here at WCPT give you credit, and your administration. Kudos on how you're handling this thing, because this is unprecedented, uncharted waters that we're in. And there's necessarily not any right answers. It's just, hey, let's see how we get along. But I say that to say I'm impressed, surprised, and happy that you got back on the right track, because you are a product of the Buckeye State, Massillon, Ohio, the home of the great Ohio State Buckeyes. Somehow you got derailed and went up to that school up north, but then you regained your senses and you came here to the greatest city in the world, University of Chicago. How did you get off track for those few years, leaving a great state and coming back to a great state, in the middle going to because as you well know, I'm a product of the Ohio State University, so I don't know how you lost focus and got off the rail. You took the scenic route. Is that what it was?
Well, so listen, I have an older brother who's 12 years older than me. So he started at Ohio State when I started kindergarten. And I remember he was on kind of like the 6 or 7 year plan, but, he's counting. And I spent a huge chunk of my childhood driving down Route 71 to Ohio State. And, my brother was a Q, and that'll resonate with some folks. Right, exactly.
Yeah.
And going into his fraternity house was like something out of Animal House. So, subconsciously, I think I probably rebelled against all of that and found my way to Amazing Blue. I bleed blue.
Take it easy. Take it easy.
But I'm. Hey, listen, we don't have much to talk about when it comes to football, right? I was watching the draft over the last couple of days, and Michigan's quarterback didn't even get drafted, so that tells you something.
Well, you know what?
I feel badly for Shane Patterson, but not a total surprise he didn't get drafted.
Well, let me say this to you, and I love my Buckeyes, and I thought we should have played in the national championship. We got robbed when we went up against Clemson, but I understand what the decision makers wanted. But I got to tell you this. Back during the 80s, your school owned the Buckeyes. I remember Jim Harbaugh. He predicted. You know how Michigan weekend is, right? And so the game was in Columbus. This guy, Jim Harbaugh, former Chicago Bear quarterback, he made a prediction that the Wolverines were going to come into the Horseshoe and beat the Ohio State Buckeyes. And for an entire week.
And remind me what happened.
I know it had, but for an entire week we were pumped up. We knew that our team wasn't going to let us down. He took a page out of Joe Namath's notebook and said, "Hey, we're coming up there to beat them," and they came in and beat us at the shoe in Columbus. It was unbelievable. So, you guys had a run during the '80s that we just simply couldn't get by you. But now, hey, payback, as they say, Mayor. You know what they say.
And Michigan with Lloyd Carr decided that consistently winning 8 games a year, being very competitive in the Big Ten wasn't quite good enough. And then we went through the debacle of, I'll be polite and call him Rick Rod instead of what I'd normally say, Rich Rodriguez.
Yes.
And then Brady Hoke, who I had a lot of high expectation for. And, it's no secret. Harbaugh has not delivered. He just hasn't delivered.
Yeah.
And there's a lot of ex-players that, won his head on the stick. I have no idea what's going to happen this fall. I haven't seen enough of who the recruits are going to be. But, offense, which is supposed to be a specialty, it's just been lacking. That defense is pretty stout. They're pretty solid. Although, again, they gave up the ghost against Ohio State. But if this year isn't a lot better and different, I don't see Harbaugh being a long-timer at Michigan.
Yeah.
I just don't.
Yeah. I don't. Mayor, we know your time is short, and we appreciate you taking some time out to join us. A couple more questions, if you can. You're a big White Sox fan. It's a town that's divided. You got the White Sox on the south side, you got the Cubs on the north side, but you proclaimed yourself as a South Side White Sox fan. How did that come to be?
So here's the honest truth. When I was working at the U.S. Attorney's Office, the White Sox used to have half-price Mondays, and you could go and buy a ticket at any price. And at that time, the crowds weren't particularly big, so you could sit anywhere. So we'd go and buy a $15 ticket, $20 ticket, and we'd sit down in the lower bowl, and that's how I became a White Sox fan. The price was right. Mm-hmm. It was a fun time. They were okay back in those days, but I just consistently liked the White Sox because you could get to see the games, and the in-stadium experience was really quite great.
Yeah, I
told Jerry Riles, bring back half-price Monday.
100%, Mayor. And going along with the sports theme, we are all missing sports and really, really waiting and hoping for things to go back to normal. But for me, it was really interesting and fun to see you guys start a campaign. And I don't know if everybody knows, but it's hang your favorite jersey or gear in your window, from the pros to the youth leagues, to show the city that we're all in this together. And you posted a lot of different pictures of people all across the state and above Chicago who put their favorite jerseys up. Talk to me about how you all are coming up with these unique campaigns that are really close to everyone and just a way to unite the city when we're going through these unprecedented times.
Well, I have to give all credit to our digital and creative team. Look, what we know is that this is a really, really tough time for everybody. It's frustrating to have to be at home for so much of the time. And I know we're all going stir crazy in my house, and I get to go out every day because, I got to run the city. But imagine the frustration of people who aren't essential workers or who can telecommute. It's a challenging experience, and particularly, this time of year when the days are longer, the weather's getting warmer. We want to be out. This is the time where we really embrace Chicago. So we wanted to give people something that they could do and claim and own on a citywide basis across the city. So this is one of many ideas that kind of percolated up through the creative team. We have you talk about sitcoms where they got a writer's table and they throw around ideas and they put something together. We have a similar thing with our creative and digital teams where we're coming up with a lot of different ideas that really help celebrate Chicago and Chicagoans and give people a distraction from what can seem like long, monotonous days staying at home.
Hey, Mayor.
As you know, this is a great sports town. People love sports, so it's an easy thing for people to connect with.
Yeah, it is, and people are chomping at the bit. We're all eager to get back out there, regardless, whether if it's the White Sox over. I still like to call it Comiskey, but I know it's called, what is it? Guaranteed rate or whatever. I still call it Comiskey.
I do the same thing.
Yeah.
I still call it Comiskey.
Yeah, I mean, it's Comiskey. And Cub fans want to get out the Wrigley, and kudos to what you have been doing in collaboration with these teams and trying to help, flatten the curve, as they say. So we're all looking forward, hopefully, to get back. The NBA, I know they're talking about having players get to respected facilities to start working out. Do you see something like that happening as far as our Bulls are concerned?
I think there's a lot of conversation at the league level about what can be done. I know the NBA is thinking about it. I think the hockey is also thinking about it. It would be some truncated end of the season, probably without fans in the arenas. But I think at this point, people are so hungry for content and see their teams play. Now, I don't know what the ultimate rules will be, and as we know, our Bulls weren't headed towards the playoffs when the season ended. But I think people would be grateful to see some professional sports. We were very excited about the Fire opening up at Soldier Field and coming back to Chicago. So I think that there's ways, once we get to the point where the curve is actually not just flattening as we are right now, but we see the number of cases declining and all the other metrics that we talked about. I do see a world where with this summer we see some professional sports, but likely without fans, at least in the first instance.
Yeah. Hey, Mayor, Lauren Cox here, and our team at WCPT, the Rewind Sports 60, we were very proud of you and happy when you told people, hey, stay at home. Right? And they were on the lakefront.
That's not quite how he said it, Mayor.
That's not how I said it.
That's not how he said it.
And it was 70 degrees.
Else at home, but okay.
And you said, listen, let me tell you something, Mayor. With all due respect, this is what I envisioned you doing. I ain't envisioned it. You did it. This is what you did. Mayor, you took off your mayor hat. You put the mayor hat over here, and you put on your mama hat. You put on your mama hat, and you say, hey, y'all, with all due respect, Mayor, you said, hey, y'all get y'all asses in the house. I ain't gonna tell you no more.
Hashtag we are not playing. Hashtag we are not playing. And that's a real hashtag that they have. We are not playing. I love it. So Chicago.
Man, that was classic. You shook some people up with that one.
I saw one tweet that I thought was very, very funny. I thought there's a lot of them are funny, but one in particular where they said, Mayor Lightfoot is that mom who turned the car around. And as my daughter was asked, I am that mom. I'm not playing.
Let me tell you something. I think, the black folks, we know that you got that in you. Black women, that's how, hey, Big Mama, the whole nine yards. My mother, let me tell you something. My mom, you got out of line, she'd beat you like a drum. And if you got out of line down the street, Your friend's mama beat you like a drum and then send you home, and then your mama beat you like a drum. So we know it. But I think some of the other folks in Chicago is kind of like, hey, wait a minute. Hey, I've never seen this side of Lori before. Hey, whoa, take it easy now. Hey, Mayor, before we let you go, I got to ask you, one of the biggest stories in Chicago, the news of the day, and it's unfortunate, and it literally nearly brought tears to my eyes to see the video, and I'm sure you've seen it and heard about it, but the party on the west side, I watched it. Credit to WGN Channel 9. They have 20 minutes of footage of this video that was sent and is circulating. But it nearly brought me to tears to see these west side young people partying the way that they were partying after you've clearly stated, and the governor clearly stated, stay at home. And they were at somebody's home. But for them to be partying the way that they were partying, irresponsible, some of them had masks on, but the carousing and everything that was going on, it was just a big disappointment. What are your feelings?
Well, I'll keep it clean, but it's just stupid. They're putting their lives at risk for a momentary pleasure. And look, I get you're young, maybe don't have impulse control. But this is just stupid. And so we're actively investigating that. I've been in contact with the police department, also our business affairs department. We're going to find out, not just there were other parties over the course of the weekend. This is not going to be a thing that we're going to tolerate. I've been very, very clear about it. Unclear if this was a private home or an Airbnb. God help them if it was an Airbnb, because that's going to be the last of them. But we can't have this in our city. We have made substantial progress in flattening the curve of this virus, meaning really starting to see the number of cases doubling. We started out at 2 to 3 days. We're now at 16 days and climbing. That is great progress. But we've only been able to do that is because the vast majority of people in the city have paid attention, have been diligent, and have stayed at home. And we are not going to start the weekends of warm weather with people, as my mother would say, acting a fool out in somebody's house, out on the street. We're not going to have that. So there's going to be accountability. I can assure you of that.
Well, Mayor, I appreciate that, and thank you. And I hope that all of Chicago are listening to this, and it certainly will replay on our Facebook page, all our social media platforms. We really, really appreciate you taking some time out of your busy schedule to join us on the program to talk sports. I love your sports knowledge, and, let's hope we can see some sports in this beautiful city of ours, and keep up the great work. And I'm sure Lauren echoes this.
Yes, you have to come back. When our beloved sports are back on, we have to have you back, Mayor Lightfoot. It's been wonderful to see how you move, and it's giving me personally a lot of comfort when I haven't always felt like that, being born and raised on the South Side from other administrations. So thank you so much for what you're doing. Stay safe. Continue to put your hammer down. Hashtag we are not playing. Hashtag stay at home. And thank you. I really appreciate what you're doing.
Hey, real quick, and I enjoy your insight regarding the Bears. We're going to have Cole Kmet. He is the new tight end of your Chicago Bears joining us. What would you like to say to him, welcoming him to the city and the Chicago Bears?
Well, I welcome and get ready. There's a lot of expectations on that young man. I hope he's able to break through and catch on with the team. But that tight end spot is a critical part of Nagy's offense. And what I've read about him, I don't remember seeing much of him because, I'm a Michigan fan, so Notre Dame's not my thing. But, I hope he embraces this opportunity with gusto and wish him much success.
Mayor, thank you so very much. We wish you continued success. I know you've got a battle on your hands, and you got some supporters here who are willing to help out any way we possibly can. And, hey, no one said it was an easy job, but I think you're handling it very, very well. And as they say, we'll all get through this together. So keep up the great work. We love what you're doing, and you represent the city by far.
You're shining.
Yeah, you're shining. There's no question about it.
In the midst of this, you are shining.
Take care of yourself.
Thank you, guys. I really appreciate it. Hey, have fun and stay safe. Thank you.
Thank you so very much, Mayor. Take care.
All right, take care. Bye-bye.
That's your mayor, Lori Lightfoot, of the greatest city in the world, that, of course, Chicago, Illinois.